blacks can relate to Trump because of how he's being persecuted and how we have been persecuted as well. We get it. Let's have a serious conversation about this talking point about how blacks love Trump even more. You know, the whole mugshot situation, and they feel more connected to him because of what's happening to him. Let me tell you the real reason why there might be some level of affinity for Donald Trump coming from within the so-called black community, which is directly amplified by him, being charged, and the whole T-shirts with his mugshot. So there is a racist connotation that it's because we are criminals, right? A lot of us are criminals, and we know a lot of criminals, so we can relate to someone. They wouldn't say it in these words, of course, but we can relate to someone else who is getting in trouble with the law, right? We know all about getting in trouble with the law, right? I'm going to tell you what I think the real connection is. And I think a lot of it comes from hip hop culture. And we'll recognize in the past there has been an affinity for Trump prior to him being a president that was much more widespread. Now it's a little bit more underground, or at least it's a lot less prominent. So the initial affinity came from a direct alignment with something that we find that is core to the hip hop culture, right? A lot of the stuff in hip hop has a lot to do with money and power and wealth, right? You see rappers driving exotic cars. They have videos in their big mansions, flying around in private jets. They got big jewelry. I got 50K on my neck, diamonds on my neck, diamonds on my necklace, right? So that's a big part of hip hop culture, this extravagance, money, and that aligns with the image that Donald Trump presented of himself. Now, much of Donald Trump's image was actually fake, was actually theater. He actually sort of created this image of himself of this big, successful billionaire. I mean, he certainly had successes, but the way he presented himself, in particular on that show, The Apprentice, was not quite a match with reality. He was a successful hype guy. He certainly knew how to hype things up and slap his name on things and build a brand, this luxury brand, and have this association of Trump with luxury. You hear the Trump brand, you think of luxury, the golf courses, whatever. So, contrary to what people who are just anti-Trump as opposed to sticking with the substance of what your issues are with him, he has had successes, and there is some level of skill that he does have. He ain't some successful businessman in terms of coming up with a new business idea and building up a successful business. But from a marketing standpoint, from a hype man standpoint, I think he's done a pretty good job, and he's continued to do so. I mean, he hyped his way all the way to the White House. I think that's a success. But anyway, that was, I think, a big part of the initial sort of affinity for Trump. But then, back then, he was controlling the narrative. We were only seeing sort of this carefully crafted image of himself that he wanted us to see. It was easier to just, put it in your rap, this and that. No, could we live it like Trump or whatever? I don't know any specific lines, but I know he was referenced in videos. But then when he got into politics, we were able to see a lot more non-scripted Trump, right? Trump on the show, as a reality TV star, you're fired, right? It goes along, right? But when he started doing live press conferences and speaking at rallies and doing all these interviews, then he started to reveal himself to be a little bit of a buffoon, saying a lot of crazy things, and he kept doing all kinds of nonsense. That just not a good look. So I think a lot of the hip hop community sort of distanced themselves from him, seeing the kind of craziness he was doing. Some people stuck with him, and I think some have come back to him, or at least more recent years have sort of came out as more so Trump friendly, shall we say. But I think we can now move to the next phase of the Trump affinity in the hip hop culture, and I'm focusing on hip hop culture because I think that's sort of the, I don't know if nexus is the right word, but I think that's the pathway, right? I think it's obviously I'm not trying to suggest that it's only brown skinned people that are listening to hip hop. Obviously, a lot of people listen to hip hop, but there is a lot of hip hop influence within the black community, right? So it would not be a stretch to expect that there's some level of influence of the culture with the people, right? So if hip hop music is promoting a certain image, a certain brand, right, that you're gonna see an affinity for that image and brand within the people who are listening to the music within the black community. And I think what we're seeing now is more the other side of hip hop, which is the gangster side, right? The gangster, I'm a tough guy. I don't care about anything, like whatever. You can't tell me nothing. Where do I get my money, right? That's probably not the best song to give that example, but that is a part of the hip hop culture as well. I'm the boss. I got confidence. I got strength. Nobody's stopping me. Nobody can't. We're the best, right? All those songs that talk about power and strength and confidence, right? And Trump does a pretty good sort of theater of pretending to be a tough guy. It's so good that even though he frequently presents himself as the exact opposite, very clearly so. I mean, arguing with children, arguing with nobodies online at 3 a.m. These are very, very weak types of things. Even though he's doing that, he still is able to maintain his tough guy. A lot of people still think he's tough. They think he's tough. They think he's an alpha guy, when he's very, very weak, very, very thin-skinned. He can't take criticism very well. But again, I think there's a parallel with hip hop, because I remember, I've been in my life, I've grown up and I've lived in some of the not best neighborhoods. So I saw how the kind of people that are probably the ones that you see leaning towards Trump within the black community, I see how they think and how they operate. And it makes sense to me. And it's not about the way it's being presented. This thing about, because they're in trouble with the law and they feel he's oppressed like they're oppressed. I see that there is an element within the black community that is connected with this hip hop culture, where there is a sort of a fake bravado, which directly matches with what Trump's all about. I remember seeing a lot of guys who have a lot of tough talk, right? Tough talk. I'm gangster, whatever. And then, I used to be a lot into extreme sports, right? So I want to do things like snowboarding. I used to do a sport called land sailing, where you would use things like these off-road skates and this big ass sail, and you got the wind dragging you around. All kinds of crazy motorcycle, sport bikes. And I would see a lot of guys, a lot of tough talk, but then they weren't trying to do any of these things. Like, they were afraid. They're like, oh man, I'm not trying to get on a bike. I'm not trying to get killed, blah, blah, blah. Right. And there's also this whole thing about guns. I guess times have changed, but, when I was growing up, the real tough guys, they take you down with their fists, right? Now you have, everybody's a tough guy now because you got a gun, right? So you're not man enough to, knuckle up with somebody, but you're man enough to pull a gun out and pull a trigger, right? So I think there is an element that I think is a close match with Donald Trump, where this fake bravado, all this tough talk, when it comes down to it, it's all just a lot of noise, right? You get all loud, yeah, but when stuff pops off, as they say, you got nothing to say, or you're going to quote unquote punk out, trying to pull a trigger, or you want to join a gang, because you can't defend yourself, right? So to me, that's Trump, man. That's the connection right there, right? This fake bravado, this money, I'm rich, I got this money, right? And then in terms of specifically with the charges and everything, I think that just goes along with the sort of gangster mentality, right? Because what are they talking about in rap songs, right? Talking about John Gotti and different gangs, Trap House, whatever. They're talking about organized crime. They're talking about crime bosses. They're talking about gangs and gang leaders and all this kind of stuff. So Trump presents himself like a mob boss, right? Which is a good fit for the hip hop culture, right? So the idea, he had these documents and they're trying to get it, and he don't care, man. He's like, nah, I'm keeping these documents. These are my documents, whatever. And now, he could have stopped, he could have given it back, but he just don't care. That's like mafia type, you know what I mean? Whatever, I'm gonna do. I run this, right? And even now, he's on trial for all these things. And the guy, I know Liberty like talk about he's falling asleep or whatever, but to me that goes along with it, right? It's just boring to him, right? If your life was in danger and you knew you were in serious trouble, you could go to prison. You ain't falling asleep, man. You're gonna be stressed out, right? But if you're some big mob boss, right, above the law, then it's all it's all like a waste of time. Like they're not about to do nothing to you because you're too big and powerful, right? And that image of too big and powerful, again, that gangster image, that mafia image, that goes along with hip hop, right? So I guess in some ways there's some kernels of truth to the representations that people have made in terms of the criminality, but I think it's more from an entertainment standpoint as opposed to an actual, so as opposed to it's people who are criminals themselves are in a criminal element feeling affinity for Trump as a fellow criminal or something like that. I think it's more, again, it's the music, right? Because in hip hop, what do you have? You have was it Rick Ross talking all this gangster stuff, and then what was he, a prison guard or something like that? You know what I'm saying? So it's again, this is a perfect alignment. So so like if you use Rick Ross for an example, as opposed to Rick Ross being an actual gangster and then he's like feeling an affinity for Trump because Trump's a gangster, look at him, he's getting charged. It's more Rick Ross is playing this character of he's some big tough guy, and Trump is also playing a character of this big tough guy. And Trump's performance is he's got the largest audience, right? He's the biggest show on earth, with this whole tough guy thing. It's a fake tough guy thing, like the Rick Ross and many other in hip hop. I mean, you have people playing tough, whatever. And then, the reality is like, guys they act as if they have like, I think even 50 got caught up in pretending to have cars they didn't actually have. Rappers pretend to be more wealthy than they actually are. I mean, this is all Trump. This is so to me. This is the entertainment. There's an entertainment connection, entertainment parallel. Trump as an entertainment star, and just this rich and powerful brand, not reality, but brand of well, he sort of has a lot of power, but in terms of the wealth, and I'm so strong, and nothing bothers me. That brand I think is a great connection to hip hop culture, and hip hop culture is very much embraced by the black community. And the more he gets charged and whatever, that sort of gives him more street cred. But again, some people may say it's the same thing, but to me, again, I think it's more entertainment than it is reality. So it's more so than it is. I mean, this would be more racist. Is that black people are criminals and they connect with him? No, I think it's people who embrace this gangster culture from entertainment versus reality, right? So you could be someone who's never committed a crime. You don't know nobody that's committed a crime, but you love gangster rap and you think it's cool, whatever. You might even dress. People look at you. You might look thugged out, but you're not really thugged out, right? But you have this affinity for this thugged out culture, and there's Donald Trump. You also have somebody like PB podcast? Brett David or whatever? He's one of these people who he doesn't have the skin color, but he definitely seems to have this affinity for gangsters, right? He's been, that's one of the things that he was known for, back in the day, where he would interview like this former mafia guy, like so intrigued, oh, this is an actual mafia guy. We're gonna find out what was it like being, working with Don Corleone or whatever. You know what I mean? Like he loves that stuff. So, someone like him would have an affinity for someone like Donald Trump, right? Because you're attracted to this intrigue, this mafia Don, whatever thing, and Trump plays he's putting on one of the best shows right now in terms of the mafia life. But just like with other entertainment, you might have a character that plays this tough, savage gangster, but then in reality, they're actually a teddy bear. They're just playing a character on TV, like Trump plays a character on TV. And those who like that kind of show, that is their affinity for Trump. The entertainment value, not the connection to their actual lives. That's my point of view. Tell me what your point of view is. Comment below. This is the Baby Channel. Leave me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.